Welcome to the Shoot to Ill podcast, a podcast for any and all creatives. My name is Martin Depict. I'm a photographer, videographer, and graphic designer based in Los Angeles. Today, I want to talk about this thing again. And I know it's getting old, but I think I want to talk about what can kill this thing. So this is my X100V. I haven't gotten the 6 yet, which is why I wanted to make this video, because apparently Fuji's having trouble fulfilling all the pre-orders. The store that I ordered my camera from, it only got a few. I'm thinking like less than 20 in their first shipment. So there's a lot of people still waiting. And if it stays like this, people are not going to be getting their X106 till maybe in the summer, or maybe even later in the year. So I wanted to talk about what camera company can actually take this thing down, because it's a great camera. Don't get me wrong. It's a great camera, and it's something that has sparked my creativity again. It's a great little tool to just take out and take pictures with. It's small, it fits in your pocket. It doesn't have a removable lens, so it's sort of like, it sort of tests you with certain limitations. And it also has those film emulations, right? So I kind of want to start there. In order to sort of figure out what made this thing so popular, I think we have to start off by talking about film photography. Now, if you are a photographer that has taken any photography film class in the last 40 years, then you've seen this thing. This is the Canon AE1. So this is the camera that most people probably used in high school, maybe in college, and some film classes. It's a sort of like very, it's a starter film camera. And then from here, then maybe you go to something like this. This is my Contax G2. This is sort of like an upgraded version. It's still sort of like a point and shoot. It has a really great autofocus system, especially for a film camera. But it's manual exposure, all that stuff. And then from there, that's still 35 millimeter film. From there, maybe you go on to something like this. This is the Hasselblad 500 CM. So I love this camera. It's one of those top view cameras. So you sort of just look down this way. Really, really fun camera to use. And then from there, you can even start messing around with instant film. So then you start messing around with a camera like this, Polaroid. Yeah, this thing's huge. This is my Polaroid Mini Portrait 403. So this thing it shoots like really big instant film that is like it's not even available to buy anymore. But this thing's pretty cool just to take pictures with. It's amazing. It's fun. I think film is great to just get into to sort of spark a different side of your creativity. Sometimes digital becomes too easy, and so you want to test yourself with these types of things. And so a couple years ago, put this thing down. So a couple years ago, I want to say 2017, 2018, Kendall Jenner went on the Jimmy Fallon show, sort of like put the spotlight on the Contax T2, which is a film point-and-shoot camera. It's a really great point-and-shoot camera, but it sort of blew that camera up to before you could buy that camera used for like maybe $400 to now they're going for like $2,000. And it's pretty insane, right? It's skyrocketed the popularity of this sort of vintage style look that everyone's using. And I think a lot of the people that were shooting film up to that point are a little pissed, right? Because it was something that maybe a lot of creatives did for fun and a little cheaper to get into. Now the better cameras that you want to buy are a little bit more expensive. Film has always been expensive, so it's not like it's been cheap. I think that some rolls are 24 shots, some are 36. And then after that, after developing and processing the film and scanning it, it probably comes out to maybe 75 cents to $1 a photo. So it's expensive. It turns into something that could really add up over time. And so I think when Kendall Jenner, put a spotlight on that camera and that look of photos, I think a lot of people sort of gravitated to film photography. And then once they sort of started to figure out that film was expensive, then they started trying to figure out, like, what can I do to get this cheaper? And Fuji has always done this with their X line. So they have the XT1, the XT2. I think they're at XT4 or 5 now, which is basically this camera with the removable lens. And so when they launched the X100 line in 2014 or whatever the fuck it was, the camera blew up. It got instantly popular right away. They had film emulations because Fuji owns these film styles, and so what they did is that they sort of created these presets on these cameras to sort of emulate those film styles or that film stock that they owned. And so by the time it got to the X100V, you can add grain, you can sort of manipulate the color a little bit more by messing around with the white balance. You can really do a lot of things like push and pull some of the highlights. And not only that, you can get it baked into the JPEG and also get the RAW if you wanted to. So you can choose to keep both files or just shoot JPEG, so that way you save space on your computer. It's just a very easy way to get that vintage look that I think everyone wanted to get. So it's been a great camera for that. But what camera company can kill this? There's already a camera out there that I believe is the better option, but it's expensive. It's $6,000. Leica has the Q3 out now, which their Q line has always been really, really popular. I think that was sort of like the first, not the first, but it's a fixed full frame camera with, it's Leica, so it's like the highest quality possible lens and body. And that camera is, I've wanted it. The Q2 was on my list forever, but I couldn't spend that much money on a camera like that. It just seems too far out of reach for a lot of the people that are doing this for fun. So a lot of people turn to the X100V or the X100 line and see it as like a cheaper alternative. And this is exactly why I got this camera. The sensor is obviously a smaller sensor. It's not a full frame sensor in this camera, but it's honestly a great everyday carry camera, which is what I would want the Q2 for. It was a camera that I would just carry around every day to just capture moments. It's sort of what got me into photography in the first place. Like when I first started shooting, what made me fall in love with photography was me going on these high school parties, back in 2005, 2006. And I would take this little Samsung point and shoot. I don't even know what it was called. I'll probably throw a picture up on the screen right now. It was just this little Samsung point and shoot. I think I had a blue one. And I would just take it to parties. I think it was like 3 or 4 megapixels. And I would just take pictures and then post them up on MySpace or Facebook. It was just fun, something that just fit in your pocket and that you can take around. This was also before camera phones were any good. So it was just something that you can use to capture moments. The point and shoot since then has always been maybe second to the phone in your pocket. Because 2007, the iPhone came out. The cameras in that thing just kept getting better and better. Now I think people are wanting this like specific look, right? Everyone talks about aesthetic, and maybe people liked the idea of adding grain and having sort of like a more real feeling to their images, other than just taking it with your phone. And now we're here. Everyone is loving and wanting, the next version of this camera because they can't get the V anymore. Everyone that is looking for the for the X100V is having to buy this camera for insanely high prices, for more than what it's worth in MSRP. Fuji can't keep up with demand. Supposedly they have switched factories from Japan to China to just make sure to keep up with the manufacturing of it, but it's still not being delivered. I think that there's still a lot of people waiting on it. And there's going to be a lot of more people waiting on it because, like everything that's popular, half of the pre-orders that they got were just from scalpers, people that bought this camera to just resell it. It's not the end of the world, right? Like, it's just sort of like the world that we live in now. Like, I've paid more than I needed to for shoes that I wanted. When the Xbox came off, I had to pay more than MSRP for that. When I got this camera in 2020 or 2021, I paid more over MSRP for this. I think I paid $1,800 as opposed to, I think it was listed at $1,400 on sites. So what can the competitors do to squash this thing? What I'm thinking is that we have two big juggernauts. We have Sony, we have Canon. These are the companies that sort of make all the sensors in these cameras anyway. Or Sony is the company that makes the sensors in all these cameras anyway. They could easily sort of like position themselves to take over. Sony has tried something like this before. So Sony put out the RX1 before, which was a fairly compact full frame camera with a fixed lens on it. I think it was a 35 millimeter f2 Zeiss lens. And now talking about that camera, I'm like, where the fuck is that thing now? That camera would do so well in this market, but it's probably like you probably can't find it new. I'm sure they stopped making it. You probably have to find it used. But that camera would probably be the type of camera that can put this thing out of business. Besides Leica with their Q lineup, Zeiss actually developed a camera back in 2018, I think it was. Yeah, it was 2018. They announced it in 2018, and they started selling it in 2020. It did not do well. It was a Zeiss camera with a fixed lens on it. It was called the ZX1. It had a 35 millimeter f2 lens on it as well. So basically the same setup that you had with the Sony RX1, but the Zeiss was $6,000. And I think the reason why they made it so pricey is because the software itself had Lightroom built into it. With a very high quality lens and a high quality sensor, and then process them on the back of this camera with Lightroom, then it would connect to the internet and you would be able to post it on Facebook or Instagram or whatever the hell you use. Talking about that out loud now, you would think, why didn't that camera do well? I'm pretty sure that it didn't do well because of the price. And I think that the ZX1 was priced at $6,000 to compete with the Leica Q1, Q2, because that camera was $6,000. The thing was, Leica has that history. They've sort of earned their name in photography already. I'm not saying that Zeiss hasn't, but Zeiss hasn't made a camera that I know of, this high quality camera that I know of. They make lenses, they make glass. I know they make a lot of, glass for camera or for glasses and telescopes. That's their specialty, is they make the glass. So them taking a crack at an actual camera and then pricing it this high, I think it just didn't hit. I think a lot of customers were probably like, what other cameras do they have? Like, what's their reputation in this space, So a lot of the bigger companies were like, these types of cameras aren't selling well, so we're going to step away. So now that everyone is raving about the X100V or the X100VI, Fuji has broken records with their pre-orders of the X100VI. Now that all these other companies are aware of this, now I think what's going to happen is that all these other companies are like, yo, we have to get in on this. And so what I see happening is one of two things, or maybe even possibly both. What I see happening is that I think one of the bigger companies, either Sony or Canon, can maybe partner up with Kodak, and they can sort of develop presets that could go on their cameras that are made to sort of emulate Portra 400, Portra 800, Kodak Gold on the back of your camera. I think like having those emulations on the back of your camera on a full frame setup, or even a crop sensor setup, just to sort of compete with the X100 a little bit better. I think one of those companies can do that. Or even better, figure out a way how to get Lightroom presets onto your camera. I know this is possible because on my C70, on my Canon C70, when I'm shooting video, I can upload a LUT onto the camera to display my video and even bake that footage onto the card. The fact that they can do that with video tells me that they can probably do it with photo as well. It maybe opens a market for other film companies to sort of sell the digital file of their emulations for people that are wanting to use it on their digital camera. So I think those two things can happen for sure. And whoever figures it out first can really tap into this market and take over this, because I don't think that this camera is the best camera. I think that it's a fun camera to carry around, and it's small, and it's inexpensive. And I think that those are sort of like the main things that the two bigger companies would have to hit, right? It has to be small, it has to have a fixed lens, and it has to have the film emulations. If you have those three things in the camera, you're set. And imagine if you have Sony or Canon's autofocus system in those cameras, you're good. And we know that they can fit this stuff into smaller cameras because Sony has already done it with their CyberShot series. I think the RX100 line has been very popular for the past couple years. I think the RX104 is one of those point and shoots that I even personally owned for a little bit. I thought it was a great camera. It had a 24-70 f1.8 to f2.8 lens on there, and it had a 1-inch sensor. So the 1-inch sensor on that thing is smaller than the Fuji sensor, but the autofocus on that was amazing. It had a built-in flash. It was just really easy to use, and it was smaller than the Fuji. So this thing could fit on my sweater. You could take it out. I think people now are just trying to get something that can capture moments other than their phone, because their phone can capture moments, but it doesn't give you that sort of like style that people are wanting. So as long as you can sort of emulate those films or a certain style with the colors, that's what will put you on the map. And so, I mean, Sony or Canon, which one of you guys are gonna do it first? Like, I think it's only a matter of time. I think as soon as either one jumps in with a camera that is competitive to this, that is maybe the same size, maybe have if it has a full frame sensor, I'm definitely getting that over this one. And if they can keep it under $2,000, I think that most people will be happy with the full frame sensor with a fixed lens. Honestly, talking about all this, I think now looking into the Sony RX1, I'm probably going to look for that thing used and see if I can get one, because it looks like a fun camera. It just looks like something it's small. I love the fixed lens. The fixed lens was definitely a big thing, because what happens was that in photography, as you sort of like get deeper and deeper into it, photography starts to feel like work. And if you have to roll around with a Pelican case full of gear to do your job, that's one thing. And that's it. That's exactly it. It starts to feel like work. It starts to feel like a job. So to have a camera that's small, that has just a single lens on it, it sort of gives you those limitations, and it challenges you in a creative way to get different types of shots. And so, like, I think that's the people that have been doing photography for a long time. I think that's why they sort of gravitate to this sort of style of camera, is because they want something fun. They want something that can sort of spark their interest in this again. They don't want it to feel like work. They just want it to feel like fun. They want to go out to dinner with their friends, take photos, without having to feel like they're carrying around like a giant brick of a camera. It's just something that you pull out real quick, little small thing. You take the photo, and it's great. That's it. Camera brands should also know that you're now competing with something that's in our pocket all the time. Like, you're having to compete with an iPhone that is now taking 20 megapixel photos that can take really great low-light images, that has a decent enough flash to capture stuff in. Like, if you're going to be charging more than what my iPhone's worth, you're already sort of limiting the audience for this camera. Like, you want to make sure that you sort of price it accordingly for people that could maybe even justify carrying around a secondary camera for this. It's funny to think that there's probably people out there that have been shooting film for such a long time, and then now they see this camera coming out here and sort of like giving people these certain looks and types of photos like straight out of camera. Before, I think it was people saying, "Oh no, film just has a specific look. Digital can't even match it." Now that we have this tool that has gotten really close to it, I'm not saying that it matches it perfectly, but I'm saying that it has gotten so close that it's leading people that do shoot film to gravitate towards this camera, because it would save them money in the long run. I get having film it's a little bit more of a process. It's a little bit more of a purist type of thing. Like, You have to really put your heart into it. You have to really be patient with it. You have to just sort of trust that you got the shot. And I think that's a very beautiful thing. The fact that not everyone can do that. I think that the world has gotten to a place where they want everything right away. And I do think that there's beauty in capturing moments and then not having to, relive the moment right away. You can wait 2 weeks or 3 weeks to develop the film and scan it to sort of see that moment again and sort of be right back in that place when you're looking at that photo, whether it's printed or on your screen, and saying like, wow, like that was such a great moment. I don't think film is going anywhere, but I do think that people wanting to get that same feeling is only getting stronger and stronger. Taking out your phone in places now, it's kind of getting crazy, right? Like you go to concerts or shows and stuff, and everyone has their phone out, and no one's really like living in the moment. Everyone's just sort of recording it to relive it later. And, I would much rather just carry around a camera, take a couple pictures of the moment, and then just sort of like try to be present, try to be there and really live in the moment for a little bit, because I realize now that it's very important. I think that sort of takes me into my next topic that's a little bit sad. My mom lost her cat last week. It's sad because, it was a pet that was in our lives for 8 years, and it's sad. I think like I have 2 cats. I have my mom's cat's daughter. So my cat, my oldest cat, and my mom's cat had 2 kittens, and I got the daughter. My mom kept the son, and so I have the dad. His name's Stitch, and I have the daughter. Her name's Nala. I know Disney names, super cheesy, but it made me think that when she passed, it was so sudden because we didn't really know that anything was wrong with her. My mom just came home one day and she hadn't been eating, and she took her to the vet and found out that something was wrong, and the vet didn't let her come back home with my mom. They didn't know what was wrong with her. They would have to do a bunch of tests, which would cost my mom a lot of money, like thousands and thousands of dollars, which I think it's sort of like a bullshit scam. You don't really know what's wrong with her yet, but you're just sort of the vet's already saying she's in pain, she's suffering, it sucks, and I think my mom, my brother, my 2 sisters were, we were all sad, and it made me think, it's important to sort of remember moments. And so I've never taken photos of I take photos of my cats all the time, but it's always, them on their cat tree, or, my cat just sort of on the couch, or they're just, I don't know if you guys have pets. I'm a dog person too. I love dogs. I just don't believe in having dogs in an apartment. As soon as I get a yard, as soon as I get a backyard, I'm definitely going to get a dog. But when I got my cat, I never knew that cats can have personalities. It's kind of crazy to even think that, you've gotten to know this animal so well that you can tell its personality, and you can tell that it has a personality that's different from another one, and that's different from, the ones that you see out. It's funny. Like, you get to really know these animals. Sometimes I get stuck thinking, if I'm in bed and stuff and my cat just sort of like jumps on me and likes to lay on my chest, it's just crazy that there's this living thing that loves me enough to just like want to lay with me. I don't know. I thought about that, and it was beautiful. And when my mom's cat passed, I was like, man, I need to take more photos of my cats. So today I actually like rolled down one of the rolls of paper behind me. If you guys know cats get freaked out easily unless they're street cats. I've donated my time at the animal shelter, and then those cats in there, they don't care. Like, you can use flash, you can throw them on a backdrop, and they're not going to freak out. A lot of them are used to being around people at that point. But house cats get freaked out for everything. If you move furniture around, they get freaked out. So especially like if I brought down the paper and I put one of my cats on it, they're like, what the fuck is going on? I don't like being up here. Take me off. I was fortunate enough to get 2 good photos. I couldn't get any of them looking at the camera, but I think I got 2 good photos that I think I can frame and put them up on my wall to just sort of like frame them sort of they're looking away from each other or looking at each other. It's not always the case that you're sort of taking photos with the purpose to remember. wedding photographers probably can relate to this, right? Like you guys put a lot of effort into certain pictures and moments because you know that people are going to want to go back to these moments and remember them. The wedding itself, the reception, cutting the cake, you know, exchanging the vows, all that stuff, like those are all moments, you know. The toast is those are all moments that you want to remember. As photographers, I like to think that I can just remember the moment of me capturing the photos, like of me looking behind the camera and capturing the moments that I spent with the people on the other side or the pet on the other side. This is more personal stuff, but I think like I don't have kids yet. One of my friends, Jenna, when she got pregnant, I've shot her through her whole pregnancy, and then I remember the day before she delivered the baby, I took photos of her, and then took photos like 2 or 3 days after, right when the baby was born. I don't know, maybe not 2 or 3 days, maybe it was like a week. But you know, every once in a while, like it was probably like every couple of weeks that I would see them, and I saw the baby growing. Now he's like a full kid. He's like almost 3 years old now. And so like little by little, he would I felt like he would start to remember who I was and really, you know why I was there. I mean, like, you know, kids are kids. I think that some kids can really enjoy taking pictures, and some kids maybe, you know, they have their days. You know, they call them the terrible twos for a reason. But you know, the fact that I've sort of seen this kid grow up, it means something to me, even as a photographer. I know it's going to mean something to Jenna, you know, down the line, that we've captured moments of him growing up. And not only that, I'm sure she's always taking pictures on her phone or on her camera. But the moments that I've been there for, I'm very grateful for. It's cool to just sort of like share those moments and look back on them and remember them. And you know, I'm not, that's not even family. I'm not related to them, but it's just beautiful moments that I can relate and be able to say that those were really great moments that I was able to be a part of. And so the same thing with my cats is that, you know, my mom's cat was 8 or 9, and my oldest cat is turning 13 this year. It's just crazy to think that I don't even want to say it. I'm sure you guys already know, but like, if you guys have pets, you know, it's crazy to think that one day they won't be there no more. Capture those moments, and don't make it feel like work. That's exactly the whole fucking point of this. Is that like, it's exactly why Fuji's doing so well. Is that like they made a fun camera to use that you can use for moments like that. It doesn't feel like work. I'm not having to take out a fucking camera and put another $3,000 lens on it to fucking take a photo. Like, you can just take it out of your pocket and shoot it real quick, you know? Don't get me wrong. It's great to sort of like take the time and effort to put into something that's a little bit more, you know, valuable, right? Like, it's great to go into the studio and take some portraits that are fun. But, you know, sometimes you don't want to complicate it. Sometimes you just want to take photos. I've honestly been part of so many situations when I'm at a party or something, and I get asked to take photos for someone, and I'm literally gone for like 15 minutes taking hundreds of photos, and like, they're probably only going to use 1 or 2. Those aren't moments. Those are like staged moments for Instagram. Those are moments that don't mean as much. I love the candid stuff. Everyone loves the candid stuff more, you know? Like, I would much rather be a fly on the wall at a party, in a recording studio, in an office, and just sort of like walk around and take pictures. I hate don't get me wrong, I hate being the event photographer, because I hate walking around to people and be like, hey, can I take a picture? And it doesn't feel genuine anymore, because it just feels like people are just putting on an act after you ask them. I would much rather just stand far away with like a zoom lens and just take pictures of people, because that's how you get the real person to come out, or that's when you capture the real, you know, essence of someone, is when they're just sort of being themselves. They don't know that they're being watched. I know that's kind of creepy, but it's like, you know, people watching. You know, that's how street photography is so popular, is that they just sort of like to capture moments that aren't planned, that just sort of happen every day, you know? So, yeah. I did want to talk about one last thing, is that I just finished my first Shoot to Ill issue. So Shoot to Ill issue 1 on the studio portraits with Austin. I just finished that zine. I did the live stream for the zine last week, and the zine, the stream of the layout was great. The editing stream was great. It was all really fun. I did also put up more presets on my Patreon. So that's available at patreon.com/shoot-to-ill. And I also made available an action on Photoshop. So if you're a photographer that deals with, when you roll down a paper backdrop, and what happens is that when you leave it out, sometimes the humidity makes all the paper ripply. So like you'll pull it down and you'll see like these ripples or these weird bubbles in the paper. I created an action to just smooth all that shit out. That's available on my Patreon. I actually made that action during the stream, so it was really helpful to just sort of like do, and then I've used it a couple more times after the stream, and it's just insanely helpful to just work with an action that actually works. Obviously there's like some tweaks that you have to do and stuff, but if you watch my live stream for the layout, I go over the action at the beginning, and then I go into the editing and laying out of the zine. So I think that's just helpful. So yeah, just want to let you guys know issue 1 is done. The March project is going to be up in a few days. So the BTS for that project is going to be up in a few days. And then I'm going to try to edit a few of those photos before I leave for a work trip. And then, yeah, I think that in the next week, I'm just going to concentrate on maybe shooting another 2 podcasts to get ahead of myself. So that way I don't have to worry about getting behind on work. So thank you guys for watching. Really appreciate you guys. If you're watching this on YouTube, like, subscribe, comment. If you're listening to this on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, please leave us a great review. It really helps us get out there a little bit more. So until next time, keep shooting. Peace.